episode is sponsored by Raise Tech, end-to-end IT solutions for your business growth.
Hey, Paulius.
Hi,
Thanks
Simas.
for joining us on the Agile Couch. Thanks for joining Agile Tour Vilnius.
Glad to be here.
It was a nice speech you had around cracking the code for cross-team collaboration.
Yep. Yeah, I was a bit nervous at the beginning, so I'm really happy that we had the conversation before, and you shared how after 7 years of being a singer, didn't help out to remove the stress completely. Before
Oh
going
no,
on
now
stage.
it's all for everybody.
Yep.
But that's a small thing. Thinking about the topic that you shared, cross-team collaboration, probably it's on purpose why you selected that one. I assume that's important for you, or you're dealing with it on a daily basis. But indeed, that's quite an intense topic across probably all of the organizations that are a bit bigger, slightly bigger than startups, more like growing companies or even very huge companies.
Yeah.
And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so the thing is that I was looking for a relevant topic. So I was looking for a topic that is that could touch as many people as possible. And as you mentioned, collaboration is easy when you have company of 10 or 15 people. But then once you grow to hundreds or thousands of people, this cross collaboration topic is becoming something that management and leadership and everyone is talking about. Because at the earlier stages of a company, or when the company is small, you're like, let's do it in a way just to make it work, and if it doesn't, we forget it, we move on. But then if you really want to have a sustainable organizational structure, you must understand what type of relationships there are between different teams, and how do we have optimal collaboration between different functionalities, different teams, different departments, different business units.
Yeah, and indeed, there was a phrases mentioned in your presentation. The one is that we are dependent on something. I don't remember. Maybe you can remind me the two other ones.
Yeah, so when it comes to those relationship types, so there are two main factors.
No, I mean, before that, there was more like a joke perspective you shared that all the teams struggle with it, and one of the team might be dependent on the other one. The other one is not delivering.
Yeah, the famous quote. So these are probably the most popular ones. Like, they broke our feature. They're moving super slow, and I hear these quotes very often, and that makes me think. What can we do to have less of that, or how do we can actually act on it and not ignore it, because these phrases and quotes are just repetitive regardless what organization.
We all see the same. We all see the same. It's not you cannot just easily avoid it.
Yeah, because one of the things that I haven't mentioned in the presentation, but imagine there are two teams that have a really good relationship. So I see quite often that it's happening because of the personal connection between some team members or some representatives. So it's not given for all the teams, right? So sometimes different representatives, they form good personal relationship, and that leads to better collaboration. But imagine you have 150 teams. You cannot have a good guy or a good girl in every team and then rely that you're going to make it through the personal relationships. So therefore, you need more scalable and more like a global approach, how to work on those relationships in a systematic way.
Yeah, and I guess the bigger organization is the more struggles we have to deal with these connections. As a simple example, there's a reason why a number of people are recommended to have in a certain team. Like Scrum prescribes some or gives some ideas, and all the literature will start talking that from 7 to 9, because the more each and every person adds the equal number of communication lines that we had in the team before.
Yeah.
And the same happens with the teams, I assume. Then the more teams you have, the harder it is to actually keep up that close connection. As you said, if there are 1, 2, 3 teams, and it's probably pretty simple because you do work close, you know each other, and once it grows, it becomes.
Yeah. And there was a good question from the audience by Arnella.
Yeah.
Like, what does happen when you have too many connections? So imagine you're a part of the product team and you have 20 connections with other teams. So some teams rely on you, you rely on some other teams, and you have this huge web. And the biggest problem that I see is that there is no shared understanding and transparency what these different connections are. Therefore, let's say you look from the management perspective, you're like, oh yeah, this team has to talk to this team every now and then, and that's pretty much it. But then sometimes leaders, they don't have enough awareness that there's way more than that teams have to deal with. So when it comes to cross-team collaboration improvements, it's like bottom up and top down. So top down, you give the guidance for teams that we going to continue investing time in those relationships. And then it's also bottom up where teams have some space to actually have those conversations, come up with improvement actions, and improve those relationships.
Invest in what's important for them.
Yeah.
If they have dependencies with the other teams, then most likely they need to have a good collaboration.
Yeah.
There is a reason for that. Regarding the tool by itself, you presented a tool. How is it called?
Relationship map.
Relationship map. Probably most of us seen something similar or use it for some different perspectives. Even as an example from project management perspective, it's stakeholder map.
Yeah.
Something that's quite close to it that shared as a good practice to be done. Although something you've shared is more unique from the perspective that it allows you actually not to just identify which connections are more important, but as well how good these connections are, and if we want to do it with something with them. Could you share any examples how you've been implementing that tool within the team? How did it go?
Yep. So all these assessments, how good is the collaboration score, is just an opinion.
Absolutely.
That is better than nothing, but it might be a bit further from reality.
And not mathematical.
Yes, absolutely.
Scientific.
Because one other thing that I do is that when I run these exercises, I'm trying to involve minimal number of people to make progress. So imagine, I'm talking to one team about improving the relationship. So it's not, the whole team talking about everything and then having, 12 people in the room. No, it's just like getting enough people that understand the context, and they can share that, with this team, it's like 5 out of 10. With this one, it's probably like 3, 7, or whatever. So I tend to get a small group of people who have the good enough context, and they'll build from there.
So not necessarily the whole team. If there's 10 people in the team, you would ask like 3 to 4 to come in and...
just, representatives from, let's say, engineering, product manager, management, or design if needed. But the smaller group, the better, because then you can have more depth of the conversation. Because if you, I haven't done that, but if I can simulate it, that if you get 12 people to the room, they will be like, oh no, it's 5 out of 10. No, it's 7. No, now let's spend half an hour talking. If it's like 5 or 7, it doesn't matter. This is just the initial map, which serves the purpose to make a decision which relationships you need to start improving first.
Which might be broken.
Yeah.
What do you find the most challenging around using that tool within this exercise?
The most challenging parts I see when there is regular one-way relationship. So imagine, I work as a team, and then there's another team that we really depend on. We need that team, but that team doesn't really care about what we need. I found these relationships the most difficult to work on because, we are interested in improving it. Are they interested? I don't know. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. And I find that, in this particular case, you really need to get guidance from the leadership saying that, first of all, building the awareness, like, look, there is this relationship, it's not working that well, we have intent to improve it. Does the leadership see that, this relationship should be improved as well? Or they're like, oh yeah, you deal with it, right? So I find these the most difficult to improve and look for.
Yeah, because indeed, if you're just requesting something from others, others is that they might not care even what you need, and you're just asking them, begging to do something, some resolution, but okay. And
because just to add one point, and that's why I specifically empathize on the role of leadership. So leaders should be looking for solutions. Like if they feel that the relationship is important enough, and the status quo, the current state, does not satisfy, the organizational needs, then they might need to make decisions like, change some sort of a structure, or maybe upskill a team, or look for other alternatives to either, reduce that dependency, or find a way to completely address it and remove it.
So you say leadership is playing quite an important role here.
Yeah.
And for them helping out the teams, it's supposed to be their decision.
Yeah.
But then we need probably from teams teams needs to be able to bring that awareness for the leaders that, hey, that's the map that we built and we have challenges with that team.
Yeah.
Is
So
that something you're referring to? Yeah.
yeah, so it definitely starts from team saying that, showing the perspective for leaders. Like this is what it looks like, because leaders, who are, a couple of levels above from the team, they don't have that transparency and visibility what's going on. So it's the team who do the initial effort by building the awareness, what are those relationships? And then if they say, look, we can improve the relationship with this team a little bit to make it from 5 to 7, but if we want to make it better, we might need some support from you as well. So it's like the teams pulling leaders to make some decisions or provide some guidance or help out.
Yeah, that's a good point. The team might be stuck if has no support,
Yeah.
and there should be a sense of need from both sides as well, either from both teams or
Yeah.
from the team and the leadership perspective, the ones that are taking the decisions for others.
Yeah. And what could happen is that, imagine you have super inspiring, super helpful leaders who are like, yep, let's make all these relationships work. But then the teams are just like, can't be bothered. I'm not really interested. I'm just going to, accept what it is, and I'm not going to be proactive. So that's another way how this whole relationship building system can be broken. So it could be either broken from the top, broken from the bottom, or broken from both sides. So then you're just like in a big mess.
Do you usually see that this is being more helpful, or the tool by itself and the practice of fixing collaborations coming from the leadership or from the teams? I mean, it's very easy for teams to just share the pain that, hey, we're not getting response as you said, or they haven't delivered something. Or is it more that you're observing that leaders coming in and saying, these two guys are not talking to each other, please
Yeah.
help out?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of two. So sometimes there is awareness about the problem from both levels. So like from the leadership and from the team. Sometimes it's only from the leadership. Sometimes it's just only from the team. So, as an agile coach, I'm trying to provide that transparency. Who sees the problem?
Across all the
Yeah,
layers, probably.
and onboard people who don't see the problem.
So indeed, it's like bringing the mirror in front of them, and it's actually once thinking about all the things we discussed, actually feels like it's all about awareness for the team, awareness for the leadership, and if you have that awareness, everything is in your power to actually to make any decisions if you want. If you don't want, yeah, perhaps you need some help and from some authority to set it out the direction, but
Yeah.
otherwise, you still need to know that you have either here a problem or this relationship is the example one that works really great.
Yeah, it's about providing this, transparency, and also making sure that you don't over invest time into wrong activities. So like,
What is
imagine
wrong activity?
wrong activity is just like, as I mentioned, trying to say if it's 6 out of 10 or it's 5 out of
Okay.
10 and spending time on that or involving the whole team, right? So relationship map is a dynamic thing. It changes over time. So imagine, me and you would be representatives from the team, would develop a relationship map. There are some chances that tomorrow it's out of date and expired, right? So it's a dynamic thing. But as long as it's somewhere there where you can get at least a grasp where you are as a team, what relationships you have, then you can make better decisions like what of the relationships you should be focusing on. And you can even use that for planning. Imagine, you start a quarter, you think about all the initiatives you'll be working with, and then like, okay, with this particular team, we will have really intense collaboration. So instead of going to them in the middle of the quarter and saying, hey, we need help with this, maybe we could give them a heads up saying that, oh, we might have some things in common. Let's have a conversation.
Yeah, it's a very nice starter actually, as you put it like that. If there are dependencies with other teams that we are aware of will happen in the future,
Yeah.
let's draw out how we are currently working with these teams, and perhaps it's a new team we haven't worked with yet. Maybe it's a good really moment to get to know them. How do they work? What they expect? Make some common ground rules. But
Yeah.
that's really good point actually for everyone thinking about the planning from the higher level perspective.
Yeah. And it's also that not all the interaction points could be predicted. So for example, you plan your quarter and then you play in a similar playground than the other team is playing. You're not doing anything like, shared initiatives, but you play in the same playground. So it's almost like, you need to get along well with the neighbors, right? Because you're playing in the same ground. So it's not necessarily you're building something together, but if you keep good relationships, if you need to adapt, if something happens, then you have an ally and you can work things out.
And as you mentioned during the presentation as well, what I really liked, the point is that you don't need to have good relationships with all the teams. I mean, from team perspective, one team doesn't need to have good relationship with all other teams. Maybe it's enough and sufficient, and over investing will not help, as you said. Stop probably wasting time investing into the things that you don't need to, like agreeing on the how good or bad relationship is, or whether we need to even work with that team, because we have so many connections and it doesn't work.
Yeah. What I notice is that whenever there is an intention to improve, relationship between these two teams, there are always low-hanging fruits. Once you collect those, then you can check if additional effort is actually worth leveling up the collaboration effectiveness and quality. But there are always low-hanging fruits. And it was like, just again, to give you an example, there were two teams, two product teams. They both work on the shared initiative. They both rated the relationship between 4 and 5. And then they came up with an action to share their quarterly plans in advance. So they would have awareness who's working on what. And then the relationship went to like 8. And that was like a small thing,
but
it was had like a significant value. Do they need to make it like to 10? They could, but probably the effort invested might be just not worth the time.
Probably it will never be 10 as well, as there is always space for improvement. But anyways, we are seeking towards the better result.
Yeah.
And if it's good enough, it's good enough.
I mean, it can be 10, but it's not promised that it's going to be there forever. Therefore, you shouldn't aim for...
how long it might take to get 10.
Yeah.
It's like a continuous improvement on everything. You cannot be perfect, probably in all the areas.
Yeah.
But really nice insights, Paulius, and it's a good reminder of a tool that we can have such and to use it. Probably it doesn't require to necessarily use the same, so to say, types or even the markings. But the point is that what I'm taking away from this, that you need to get that awareness for yourself, as if you're a leader, if you're a team, and then decide if you want to do something with it or just leave it as it is.
Yeah, you can always simplify it and have a format that works for you.
Thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure to talk as always.
Likewise.
Have a great day here.
Thank you.